Good morning again, ladies. These will be the answers to homeworks numbers 10 and 11. Should go pretty quickly because I've decided to start cutting back on the numbers of questions in these homework assignments. I'm sure you've noticed and appreciated that. Number 1, homework 10. From where did the Mycenaean culture get its name, and where was it geographically located? Well, the Mycenaean culture got its name from the city of Mycenae, Mycenae. And where was it geographically located? The Mycenaean culture was located on the large southern peninsula of Greece called Peloponnesus. The large southern peninsula. Number 2, about when did this culture begin, and about when did it become the dominant culture of the area? Well, it started in about 1900 BC, and from what they could determine, it became the dominant culture in about 1500 BC. So in a matter of about 400 years. Started 1900 BC, became dominant in about 1500 BC. Number 3, how did the Mycenaean culture learn Minoan ways? And what are two things they borrowed from the Minoans? Well, they learned Minoan ways as a result of trading. When they went out trading, they learned about Minoan ways, and two things they borrowed from the Minoans were their art styles and their writing. As a matter of fact, they also did borrow the idea of building big palaces, and they used the art styles and part of building these palaces. But art styles and writing were the two main things they borrowed from the Minoans. Number 4, what 3 things did the Mycenaeans do when they sailed the Mediterranean Sea? Well, they traveled for 3 main reasons. They traveled for trading purposes, they traveled to start new settlements, and they traveled to make war with neighboring countries, neighboring civilizations. And finally, number 5, what happened to the Mycenaeans in about 1200 BC? And also give 2 possible reasons why they never regained their earlier power. Well, what happened to the Mycenaeans in about 1200 BC is there was a tremendous earthquake that killed most of the Mycenaeans. It was a horrible, horrible earthquake, and 2 reasons why they never really recovered from that. Actually, they gave in the book several, but here are 3. I asked for 2. They had weak leadership, weak leaders. There were tremendous food shortages, and so people either died or went elsewhere. And finally, the Dorians, another group of people, migrated in to the area, and kind of the Mycenaeans mixed and mingled with the Dorians. All right, those are the answers to homework number 10. Homework number 11. Number 1, where was the Trojan culture centered, and why was it considered to be such a strategic location? The Trojan culture was centered in the city of Troy, which was in Asia Minor. Asia Minor. Why was it considered to be a strategic location? Well, a strategic location means that it's an important location for some type of reason, and here's why. Well, it was a high point of land near the Dardanelles, which was a strait, Strait, a form of water, a waterway, a strait that connects the Aegean Sea with the Sea of Marmara. And it separated Asia from Europe. And this passage was a very important passage because it allowed passage to the Black Sea for trading or for warfare. And so the city of Troy strategically allowed who could go through this passage. And so it was a strategic location. Number 2, about when was the city founded and what was its major defense? It was founded as early as about 2900 BC, and its major defense was thick walls surrounding the entire city, thick walls. We hear about it actually in number 3. Number 3, which 2 epics contained stories of Troy, and who was their author? The 2 epics were the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Iliad is the story of the Trojan War, and actually the Odyssey is the story of Odysseus, who finally breaks through, and we'll get to that in the other answer, but his trip home, which becomes an Odyssey. And that word even entered the English language because of that Greek character. The author of the Iliad and the Odyssey was the Greek poet Homer, and he was believed to be blind, believe it or not. Number 4, when were the epics written, and when had the Trojan War actually occurred? Well, Homer wrote the two epics in about 750 BC, as near as they can tell, about 750 BC. But the Trojan War had occurred hundreds of years before, and they even maybe put it around 1250 BC, which would have been roughly about 500 years before he actually wrote the stories, wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey. And finally, number 5, last question. Who was the Mycenaean hero who helped defeat Troy, and what was the interesting method he used to capture the city? And the Mycenaean hero was Odysseus. I mentioned him a minute ago. He was one of the generals of the Mycenaean armies who was attacking Troy. And he had the idea to build this huge hollow wooden horse. They hid soldiers inside of it. It was a tremendous horse. And they just left it outside the gates of Troy. So they pulled it up to the gates of Troy and just left it there. They boarded their ships and they left. Well, the Trojans inside saw all of this happening, and they just thought it was a peace offering. And so after the Mycenaeans had left, they pulled it inside their gates. That night, the Mycenaean soldiers crawled out of the horse, let the rest of the army in, and they defeated the city of Troy by morning. And so that's a famous Greek mythological story. And we even get the idea of the Trojan horse in computer terms these days, because if you can sneak a virus into someone's computer by opening an email and then it does damage to your computer, it's just like the Trojan horse that Odysseus thought about. Okay, that's it for today, ladies. There is no other assignment. Make sure you have all your answers correct and get ready for tomorrow's quiz part 1. That's quiz 3 part 1. See ya.